Bismillah. He is the benevolent, the giving and merciful. He's so indescribable. His love is irreversible, word undeniable, lyrically untriable, ultimately viable, eternally supplyable, maybe inconceivable, but beautifully believable. The true reality, there's no similarity. Gave us more than charity, peace and prosperity. Why did we never care to see it? We can keep its clarity. The Almighty, the Father metaphorically, but in the history they tried to make his word a mystery. Gave him mortality, anthropomorphic fallacy. Say he's got a seed, they can never bring the proof to me. And honestly, the greatest, the best, beyond time and space, beyond matter and flesh. Yes, he's uncomparable, yet his parables infinitely listed pictures couldn't give a good description. The pictures missing, but he created all the living in every dimension, and he inspired what I'm giving, the giver of wisdom, devoid of any needs. Anything that he wants, all he has to say is be, cause he's the untouchable, infinitely trustable, his plan unstoppable, power untoppable, the reliable, undeniable, greater than the physical, master of the mystical, the master of the worlds, the fashioner of seas, the crafter of the universe, the atoms to the bees. His love is truth.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
And Ramadan Mubarak, my sister.
Ramadan Kareem.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Let us open in prayer. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Say, I seek refuge in Allah against the accursed Satan. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve. Thee alone do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path you bestowed your favors upon, and not the path you brought your wrath down upon, nor those who've gone astray after hearing thy teachings. Ameen.
Ameen.
Praises be to Allah, the Lord of all the world. Another great show today, episode today.
Yes. So welcome to season 3.
Oh.
We're gonna get it right, y'all.
We're gonna get it right. We're gonna get it right. All right, retake.
Okay. Welcome to season 3, episode 17.
She had to count her fingers.
No, it would go down. Of the 99 attributes of Allah in 30 days, where we take 3 to 4 attributes per day and go into their meaning and usage in our environment. And this year's theme is living by the book, attributes in action. And Allah says in the Holy Quran, quote, Allah, there is no God except He. To Him are the most beautiful names. And believers, these 99 beautiful names are the 99 attributes of Allah.
And the 99 characteristics of Allah reflect the noblest of qualities and abilities. They represent the perfect ideal for human beings to strive to. Our tradition says, Islamic tradition says, derive your manners, character from the attributes of Allah. And therefore, our beloved prophet, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, is reported to have said, cultivate within yourselves the attributes of Allah. And our minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, tweeted, when you have an attribute of God, you should strive for degrees of excellence in that attribute.
Praise be to Allah. And so, as we said before, that theme is living by the book, attributes in action. And we have to say that we thank Almighty Allah for giving a book through a man, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But we also thank Allah for giving us Master Fard Muhammad, who is that book. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is also that book, and also the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who lined his mind up with those 2 books. And as we watch this next clip, The Time and What Must Be Done, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan goes into who that great Mahdi is, Master Fard Muhammad. But he also talks about how he is those 99 attributes. What? And plus some.
A few more, or some.
Something like that.
Something like that, right?
Paraphrasing. So let's watch the clip.
As we have been sharing with you in these broadcasts of the time and what must be done, the representation of the great Mahdi, or long looked for guide of the Muslim world, Master Farad Muhammad, who is the master of the wheel, and the great Jesus, the Christ. The Christ and the Mahdi are one and the same. For Christ means one anointed with power to crush the wicked. And the Mahdi is one also anointed to set justice in the earth and to set down every tyrant. And we are saying that in our humble judgment, he, the Mahdi, the Christ, is so magnificent. There has never been a manifestation of God like him. And when the Quran says in the 112th surah or chapter, and there is none like him, never has there been one like him who is the master of that great mother plane or wheel. He is the manifestation of all of the 99 attributes of Allah plus a few more, as Allah is always coupling his attributes in this manner. He's mighty, but he's wise. He's strong and powerful, but he's the forgiving and the merciful. He is the avenger and the destroyer, but his power is always balanced with his oft returning to mercy and his forgiveness. He's always balanced. We would have to do something so terrible that would allow him to unleash the fullness of the power that he has.
Praises be to Allah. And you know also, brothers and sisters, what's also very important about that one, the great Mahdi who came to us, said he came to make us into himself. So this next clip we want to show, we want us to think about these words of the Honorable Minister Lord Farrakhan. What if we could use 95 to 99% of our mental capacity? Who would we be? What would we be able to accomplish? Let's watch this clip.
And if you could use 95 to 99% of your mental capacity, then you would be a reflection of God himself. This is why we as Muslims can wear the names or the attributes of God, because we are born to reflect him. The beneficent, the merciful, Rabb, the Lord, the nourisher, the sustainer, the evolver. We all have that power to bring a thing into existence and nurture it until it reaches perfection. God made us like himself. You got the power of life and the power of death.
Praise be to Allah. So as you heard the minister tell us that we were created to be a reflection of him. And so if Allah is the 99 attributes plus a few more, then he's saying that we can have those 99 plus a few more as well.
That's right.
We can be the book. We can be a reflection of the book.
That's right. And that's what ultimately, when we talk about the language of the Quran, it is guiding us to a higher level. This is why it talks about the jinn and the men, right? The jinn coming from the term that really means to be an embryo, but it also means to be undeveloped. So think about an embryo in the third trimester. That's kind of weird, right? I mean, I ain't gonna say weird. That's kind of weird to say it's weird, right?
But it's not gonna make it.
It ain't gonna make it, right? It's weird on top of weird, right? So, but when we're talking about development, when I talk in public school and you have someone 4 grade levels behind and they're sitting in the classroom, right? What's going to transpire, causing disruption, don't want to be there, right? So you get a picture of Allah showing you in the Quran of the angels really in a classroom, right? And Iblis just pops up and starts acting other than himself, right? Or acting himself because of where he's at in that development. Then you have man, which is dealing with just rational thinking, right? And then now what's the next level of that? It's God. It's God. So the Quran is really about the demonstration of becoming a God, becoming yourself, right? So we got language called self-improvement, the basis for community development, right? Right? What are you thinking?
I'm always thinking, when you say that, the potential, we're potential gods. We're gods with the potential to be able to exercise force and power as gods. And then you always talk about that Allah wouldn't give you more beyond your scope or
your potential.
potential.
Right. And what is that potential? Like you just said, that potential is
Right.
God.
To be a God.
So we're so excited today. We have another great show as always. We thank you for your feedback. We thank you for the love that you've been showing us on Facebook, Instagram, and just showing how you've been enjoying the 99 attributes in 30. So on this day, we have coming straight out of, we're going to go Jadakiss, New York, New York.
Look, she's like, oh, Lord, don't do that.
We're going to go, it's kind of hard in the South. We got a certain twang in the South, right?
An affinity for y'all in New York.
Yeah, even Beyonce had an affinity, right?
True story is something about those Brooklyn people. We don't know.
Come on now, come on. Well, this sister I started working with the Al Quran working group. And like Brother Imam said when he came on, it's amazing because we didn't know each other. I probably knew a few of the people that were on there, but for this core working group, I literally just met them a few months ago, right? And just the gelling and the bonding and the relationship that we have developed working together, putting on programs together has truly been amazing. And, I always brag on them because these sisters and brothers are so brilliant, at what they do. And it's such a great honor to have our beloved sister on, Sister Jaydah Muhammad. So what did you think about when you first met and spoke to her?
Look, I got to tell the story. Sister Jaydah, I'm going to tell what happened. So I text her, but I said, you know what? She's from Brooklyn, New York. So I said, I know these one of the people that you got to call and connect because it don't translate with text messages. It does. And so when I called, I said, Assalamu alaikum, Sister Jaydah. She was like, well, alaikum salam. Who is this? I was like, Sister Sadia. And my whole world opened up and I got to see the beautiful side of her. Well, she a crack soldier though, for real.
Oh, yeah.
So praise be to Allah. And I really was interested in getting to know this sister because just her spirit is very powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
And to find out, through Sister Qadira, our beautiful sister, first of all, mighty vanguard, right? But she's doing powerful things in our nation and in the nation, in the world. She's a world traveler. She works with the United Nations, with the International Leadership Institute on our behalf. And so she's been doing that for a while. And you could tell her brilliance and her scholarship. And then not only is she what they call she's a world traveler, but she's very spiritually inclined.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I could tell that from her as well. So they go hand in hand and she doesn't separate who she is, right? She is an excellent representation of an MGT and a follower of the Honorable Elijah, the most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, my sister.
You on mute?
No.
Wow, alhamdulillah. First of all, thank you so much. That's what a beautiful introduction. I'm not sure if I can claim everything you said. I think I will strive to live up to that. Thank you so much. It was really great getting to talk. Like, it's not every day that Sadia Kareem, like you get a call. It's like, oh my God. I was gobsmacked and shocked.
Praise be to Allah.
So how you doing today, my sister?
I'm doing pretty good, praise be to Allah. Like, it's day 16 of Ramadan, and so I've been going from like team meeting to team meeting all day. And it's been a blessing, right? Like as you said, like I had the blessing of getting to work on behalf of, our people and on behalf of our youth. And so every day is never a dull moment. I'll put it that way. But Ramadan has been really helpful and just reminded me to like just, when your energy is kind of depleted and you may not have as much as you're used to, it forces you to just prioritize what's truly important. So I'm good. In a nutshell. Life is good. How are y'all?
Me too, I love. I'm trying to tell you.
We're feeling your energy.
Yeah. Good. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah.
What do you have for us today?
Oh, okay. So, first of all, again, thank you so much for inviting me to come through and like just share and reflecting on Allah God at a time like this when, we absolutely need to. So, today, I was, asked to share about 3 of Allah's attributes. And so, it's interesting because the attributes that we share about, like, we study, of course, like they're his oft repeated ones, like Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the beneficent, the merciful, and then there might be ones that stick out to us. Like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that each of us has at least, has 2 that we also like, can embody perfectly. But the 3 that I get to share about are 3 that I haven't been so familiar with. Like there's, Al Muqeet, the nourisher, Al Haseeb, the reckoner or the accountant, and Al Jaleel, the Majestic. And so I'm sharing with you as I'm learning, as I'm studying, as I've gotten to reflect, as we think about how we want to, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in those clips, like how might we also come to embody and demonstrate and cultivate those attributes within ourselves, with the God within, right? So it's super, super interesting stuff. Like thank you. I want to say again for the research opportunity that this also became. And so in studying, so Al-Muqeet, right? One of the like they say the 39th attribute that is mentioned of Allah in the Holy Quran, he's said to be the maintainer, the sustainer, the guardian, the feeder, the one who has power. And in researching like just the Arabic roots letters, so like the 3 letters or the root words come in Arabic with those base consonants. You got the kaf, you got the waw and the ta. When you put those together, it has the connotations of to feed and to nourish, to supply and to sustain, but also to keep and preserve and guard, to witness, to watch over. And it's mentioned in the Holy Quran, where it says that if you like whoever comes and bringing good deeds, that has something good for them, and whoever comes with evil deeds, Allah has something unpleasant for you, paraphrasing. But in thinking about that, like specifically what seems to separate or distinguish Al-Muqeet, that attribute, from Al-Razaq, which is the provider, is that when we're talking about sustenance, and thinking about how Allah provides, that this is a level of sustenance that goes beyond just physical nourishment into what's spiritual. So when we think about sustenance, not just for the body, but also, for your mind, your body, and your spirit. And then just remembering that Allah is indeed the provider and the sustainer. And so when I thought about, okay, how does Al-Muqeet show up in our lives? And remembering that one of the things that I'm constantly thinking about is how Allah provides. Like Allah constantly provides for us. Like the Quran speaks about people who, when there's a peal of lightning or a peal of thunder, like some of us, like we freeze and we get scared. But we also may like rejoice in that light. And so the Quran talks about how, as we go through the vicissitudes of life, when things are going our way, we are good. And the Quran talks about people when things are going our way, we don't remember Allah like we should. But when we're on a ship in a storm, then we're like calling out to Allah and swearing our most virulent oaths that, oh Allah, if you just get us through this, just get me through this, I'll praise you for the rest of my days. But like just knowing that innately we know that praising Allah, that He is one who is able to answer our prayers, that you can go to anyone that might be able to provide something for you, whether it's your boss, whether it's a loved one, whether it's a parent, whether it's, maybe you're in, like me, in the nonprofit world and you're applying for grants, whatever it is that you need, at the end of the day, Allah is the root of it all. And the Quran says, and surely wealth belongs to Allah as well. So remembering that at the end of the day, you can never lack anything, because if you have Allah by your side, if God be with you, who can be against you? When we talk about nourishment as well, that there's always, always, always something to be grateful for. And that even if you're in a situation where you are indeed going hungry, like you can ask, like, oh, well, where's the nourishment if I'm going hungry, if I don't have things that I need? But like, you're also still yet being provided for, even with the breath of life. And you're still being provided for in the spirit of having another opportunity to wake up and try again, and having another opportunity to come closer to Allah. We can talk more about that later. But one other thing in terms of how we can cultivate that quality in our own minds, in terms of we're thinking about how to be, al-Muqeet, how to be nourishers and sustainers ourselves. One, knowing that a prayer that I may offer, like when I'm like in the thick of it, and when I'm feeling I really want to just get close to Allah. Lord knows I might need it. Might be a space of stress or a space of just, trying to get back to center. I pray to Allah, and we ask him for, I ask him for wisdom, because my wisdom is finite, but his wisdom is infinite. And we can ask him for strength, because our strength is finite, but his strength is infinite. We can ask him for, we can ask him for those things that we know we need to expect of ourselves to have everything, because we are plugged into al-Muqeet, Allah, the provider, the nourisher, sustainer, the one who has that infinite source and wellspring of all the things that we need. But just knowing that if you have a provider, and you can provide it for, and that's true for all of us. So we can also just be mindful of what we're nourishing our own minds and spirits with. What are we feeding from? This is the time of Ramadan. We know that, we're being mindful of the fact that we aren't eating during the daylight hours, but we're also not supposed to be imbibing or taking in things that, are more lowly and that take us away or further away from Allah. So that's just something for us to keep in mind. What are we nourishing ourselves with? But also that can always tap into the source. We just have to turn to him. So I just want to start with sharing that. And just shall I just jump straight to the next one? Yes, ma'am. So another one that I got to study and learn about is Al-Haseeb, which is the one who takes account of all actions and reckons them, the reckoner, the sufficient. So this is one that even in my study of Allah's 99 attributes, has been so totally like not one that I took the time before to really get to know, but this is officially now one of my favorites. So in terms of the root words for this one, you have the ha, you have the sin, and then you also have the ba. And so when you put those together in classic Arabic, it has connotations as follows. It means to reckon, to number, to count, to calculate, to compute, to think, to give without sparing or scanting, to give without the receiver's expectation, to suffice, to be sufficient, to be without measure. And so this name is also used in the Holy Quran. And so it's said that Allah takes account of all of our actions and reckons them on the day of judgment. That basically there's no thing that we can do too big or too small. It even says that if you commit an act, or if there's something to account for, even the size of a mustard seed, that Allah will take it into account. And so I'm reminded of what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. He's quoted as having said that you must never think that God is overlooking something. He is not like us. He does not overlook anything. And so to me, that gives me a lot of solace, because one of the things that I love about talking to Allah is that there's nothing that you can talk to him about that he doesn't already know. Like you don't have to, you have to put on like any kinds of airs with him. You don't have to, he knows you better than you know yourself. And so you're talking to someone who already knows everything it is, about you. There's a certain comfort that I derive from that. And, that also means like the things that you're suffering through, the things you're going through, Allah sees them all. The things that, the ways we treat people and the ways we are treated, Allah sees all of that too. And so even Brother Minister Jabril, it reminded me of an article that he had written back in 2007 in his Farrakhan the Traveler Final Call newspaper, where he says that basically he was having a conversation over dinner with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad had kind of turned to his left at like a 45-degree angle. And he said at that time, Brother Mr. Jabril said that it was at that time was the first time, November 1961, that he had become aware that he was in that moment in the presence of God. And so he said that he had never been involved in a circumstance before that when he was aware that he was in God's presence. But he said later on that, of course, I came to understand I was always in his presence, as we all are, all of the time, every moment of the day. He is really here. So as the Quran says that Allah is closer to us in our own life vein. And I've been pondering that, like, for a minute, like, how can it be that God is closer to us in our own life vein than like where, where is he exactly? But then it's like if Allah, even as we understand Allah as being, a man, even still knowing that Allah is also with us and within us too. And so keeping that in mind, that Allah is never too far away from us, and just knowing that you can talk to him, and knowing that he will respond to you, and that he wants to turn us to him, and that when we walk toward him, he runs toward us. Another example of where this shows up, seriously, this Al Haseeb, like this is so fire, it's so cool. Another story about where it came up in even the Hadith, like they said, Prophet Muhammad, they were having a difficult time in the Battle of Uhud, and that an army came around them. And so it's quoted in the Holy Quran where it said in Surah 3 that, men said to them, like, a great army is gathering around you, and that it frightened them. But it only, like with Prophet Muhammad and the believers, it only increased their faith. And so they said, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil, Allah suffice for us, and that he is the best disposer of affairs. And so even in that time, like knowing that Allah accounts for all, like when you have Allah on your side, how can you lose? And so like that kind of spirit just, I love like seeing like the warrior stories in our Quran, but like that spirit of knowing that not even the smallest thing, the smallest good deed you do will be accounted for by Allah. He takes it into consideration that he knows all about you, and that he's always with us, and we're not alone. And so no matter what you're going through, when you have somebody like that on your side, can't go wrong. And so another thing that another way it shows up and how we can apply it in our own daily lives, knowing that Allah is the accounter, reckoner, we can also just keep one thing in mind in terms of what we choose to add to that count. In other words, how we choose to show up in spaces, and even certain the smallest, the greetings, how we're taught that if you receive the greetings, that you're supposed to return it at equal or greater measure. And that's like a nice, easy, like mathematical equation. Like your greeting must be greater than or equal to the greeting that you receive. But that shows up in life too, where sometimes I'll just share a story in regards to like how we can, show up with it. As Sister Sadia mentioned, like I have, had the blessing of getting to travel around the world. And many, many years ago now, I lived in Shanghai, China for a semester. They call it Shanghai, And so being like a Black girl in Shanghai during a time where there weren't that many foreigners living in China in the first place, Chinese culture is kind of like New York culture, in a sense of like people in China are very straightforward about things. It's not like Japan where people might talk kind of around like an issue. People in China, very direct, which was fine for me. It fits where I'm from. We're very direct in New York too, so it worked just fine. So every single day there was some kind of, adventure where, one day I'm sitting in a park minding my business, and like an elderly woman like walks up to me and sits down, and she just goes, she's like, oh, you people dance really good. I'm like, what? I'm like, why? On the inside, I'm thinking, what would me sitting here minding my business, reading a book under a tree, what would that have anything to do with anything that you're just saying, like, why do you feel the need to come and like give me your opinion on things? But then I'm like, I might be the first Black person she's ever met. And so then like I just respond back. Basically, I'm like, yeah, you too. But it's like there were many moments where, because of that cultural difference and because people like approach and they maybe are not sure how to relate to you when you're the only person that looks like you within like a certain mile radius, especially when I was traveling to like more rural parts of China, I came across moments where I honestly felt pretty annoyed about how some people were choosing to interact with me. But then I have a distinct memory, Allah bless me, it occurred to me like, oh, I can choose to let this be a moment where I'm just upset and that would just be the interaction. Or I can, it can be like all of me. I can believe in my own power to transform this moment into an opportunity for mutual understanding or mutual growth or mutual learning, or at the very least a laugh, or at least I'll come away learning something. And so it's that element of alchemy where like what you give back should be greater than or equal to what you receive. So sometimes people give nonsense, like dealing with any of our people. Sometimes, I mean, again, I'm from New York. The hood is right there outside my window. But it's like people come with all kinds of craziness and nonsense all the time, but we don't respond back with craziness. That creates a multiplier of a different kind of effect, like more negatives on top of negatives. But what we're seeking is to create to represent, Muqeet, to represent the provider, the nourisher. We want to give that kind of good nourishing that Islam can provide. And that comes from having a little more sense than maybe the people that you might interact with in a given moment. Maybe next it might be you. You would want someone to do alchemy and give you back something better than what you might give. And so if we all carry through with that same kind of energy and spirit, that don't start none, won't be none, but that like, want for your brother and sister what you want for yourself, that also helps keep our count in the positive and not in the negative, if that makes sense. And so, okay, praise be to Allah. And so lastly, last one that I'll touch on for today is Al Jaleel, the Majestic. And so the one who is majestic, glorious, sublime, the one who is great and above all in rank and dignity. It has the roots of, you have the Jim and the Lam again. And so in those roots, they have the classic Arabic connotations of to be supremely great, to be glorious, majestic, to be sublime, to be high, lofty, far above and independent. The one whose greatness and majesty are immeasurable and cannot be comprehended by the mere senses. And so the one whose glorious nature is indicated by the great things that are created. And so I love this one. And as I'm thinking about like, where do you know majesty? Like, who are the most majestic people you know? What are the most majestic creations that you've seen? It's such an absolute blessing to just be able to literally see and hear or perceive, even with the limited senses that we have and the senses that we're striving to grow. And we're taught how music, I'll just say it for myself, I get to experience the glory and majesty of Allah often when I reflect on the fact that music, medicine, and color are the the true essence of Allah, God, as we're taught by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, from Master Prophet Muhammad himself. As we're thinking about that, like we have so many amazing musicians, amazing colorists, amazing doctors, but in thinking about how there's truly an infinity in any of those things, we have a certain set of musical notes and they can be combined in an infinite possible combinations, right? An infinite number of instruments that exist, but like there's so many ways that a person can also express their greatness. So when for me, I really feel close to Allah and I like see the glory of Allah when I see that glory expressed through the creativity of other people. Like if you ever had the blessing of seeing a violinist in their element, oh my God, it is a truly divine thing to see, or to see someone doing what they were created by Allah to do. It could be, witnessing them paint. Like I really must encourage everyone as we try to cultivate these characteristics in ourselves to think about how and to make sure you carve time in your schedule to see and witness artists, whatever kind of artists you care about, like in their element, or to be around people who are doing what they understand Allah has created them to do. Even just being able to witness it. Like I have a sister who is just like a master chef. And so to her, she just gets into the kitchen. It's like, it's like she's making a composition. It's like watching what I imagine watching Basquiat paint must have been like. And she's just like, oh, perhaps I'll just add a little bit of that. And, I'm thinking it's like truly seeing the art. Or if you're familiar with Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad or Professor Chris, like when I get to see them do their martial arts thing, it's like it helped me to understand the art aspect of martial arts and seeing how they can combine different combinations. Like, oh, what's gonna happen here? Am I gonna elbow or throw? Am I gonna, are we punching the stomach? But it's like, and it sounds funny, but that's their field, that's their area of genius. And it's like to get to witness it can bring you closer to Allah and knowing that you too are capable of doing the same thing. So the last thing I'll say is this, as I close, I'll just share a quick story. One time I had the blessing of visiting an elder MGT's house. And so, how sometimes you visit like a home, whether it's like an elder person or not, just like there's like a basket of fruit, right? And so the sister had a basket of oranges just on her dining table. And so I noticed that one of the oranges was looking kind of strange from the rest of the oranges. So I reached and I picked it up. And the thing is that when I felt the texture of it, I realized that it wasn't actually an orange, it was an apple. But you know how fruits, when they're next to each other, they share pheromones and they share like the chemicals like, in the air with each other. And so I realized that this was an apple that had been around the oranges so much that it started to take on the characteristics of an orange. So it was orange. It was, well, orange colored, but it was still an apple. But the fact of the matter is that just because it was around all the oranges did not make it an orange. It was still an apple. But because it was so affected and it was like so totally not itself, it ended up just being not an orange, but a sad version of an apple. It was a mushy, it was like so totally not the kind of apple you want to eat. But what that taught me is that like by not being ourselves, it actually makes us less than, it's like multiplying by a decimal or a fraction. It makes us less than what we actually are striving for. It takes us backward and not forward. We can strive really hard to be like something or someone else that we're not. But we're only going to get to embody or experience Allah's majesty more and more as we strive to be ourselves. And so Allah the God is Allah the God. He's majestic and he's so sublime and so literally amazing. You can think of your favorite celebrity, your most favorite inventor, your favorite artist, and it's his mind from which they came, which makes him even more amazing than all of those folks combined. We're talking about the mind of like the kinds of things that you can create. If you ever just see the inventions that exist in human ingenuity, like I love me some planes because I always think about like what it took to make the plane happen or a plane to take off. That's another conversation for another time. But but what I'm saying is just that Allah has that majesty and he has it and embodies it because he's being himself. And so we did say when we sum up Islam, 6 words, accept your own and be yourself. And that is a way for us to also strive to embody and cultivate that majesty in us, to pay attention to the moments where you come alive. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, when your actions are touched by the spirit of enthusiasm, when you feel closer to Allah, closer to the source of majesty, the majestic, that's a way for us to cultivate that in ourselves too. So I'm not sure if I gave the greetings, but in case I didn't, assalamu alaikum. And so then now I can say, I'll greet you as I came before you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam. Now, we were over here laughing, right? That's an excellent example. But I also love the part when you say, we're in the hood, we right outside. We can look right out our window, us too, right?
True story, I hear sirens as we speak. That's not even a joke.
So praise be.
So excellent presentation, sis. We could tell that you this was fun for you. This was really fun and that you really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And you really embodied these attributes. And as I'm listening to to you give examples of other people, I hear you in it as well, a great storyteller. And so, what Al Muqeet, when you were talking about just the definition of it, but it says, but also an endless supply of loving kindness for the heart. And then it made me think of Surah number 2, Al Haseeb, the reckoner, the sufficient. It made me think of the Surah 440, where it says, verily Allah does not do injustice, not even so much as the weight of an apple. I mean, an apple. You got apple, right?
So I'm talking about apples back 1400 years.
Well, an atom.
Hungry.
And if there's a single good deed, he multiplies it and gives from himself a great reward. And then Al Jaleel, Majestic. And as you're just talking about, experiencing the majesty of Allah, especially in your travels in this world, and choosing when opportunity comes, like you can make a decision, being intentional or measuring what your response is going to be when you were in China. Now, let's make this practical for you. Now, you work for a nonprofit, right? Or you serve at a nonprofit. I won't even say work because that's diminishing what you do. The fact that you're so young doing what you're doing and traveling, and that you share information so willingly, and all of these acts of kindness, it's such a beautiful thing. And then you just go in your majestic self looking like a beautiful MGT. Can you talk about your journey and where you are and how you got to where you are? With
Alhamdulillah. With what?
attributes in mind.
With the attributes in mind.
Just talk
Man, that's so interesting. Oh, that's so fun. Okay, here's what's coming up for me. Bismillah. I'm just gonna go for it. As I think about when I heard the Honorable Minister Farrakhan say that, we all can embody those attributes. And he said to pay attention to the ones that resonate with you, essentially. I looked at it. Oh, I'll say this. So my middle name, and I don't always talk about it, but it's relevant here. So my middle name is Seer, like Seer, like one who does the thing you do with your eyes. So I guess like one of the attributes that always stood out to me is al-Basir, right? Like, the all-seeing. And so one of the things that I will say that part of my journey in coming to appreciate Allah's attributes and in getting to travel the world is literally being able to see. I thank Allah for my physical sight. And so I totally did have a moment now it's been, a decade. My gosh, it's been a decade. So a decade ago, I literally woke up one day physically unable to see from one eye. Super not fun, would not recommend it. But that experience, like, I had gotten some kind of eye infection, and everything I tried to do, it didn't work. I promise this all relates back to the whole nonprofit, like work and travel thing. But it was like, it was not working. And so then the infection started to spread to my other eye. And so I started not being able to see from my other eye either. Had to go to the hospital, was hospitalized for days. And I remember just thinking like, oh Allah, I was actually on my way. No, I had just gotten back from traveling to a few different countries. And I remember being like, oh Allah, my name is Seer's in my name. It's kind of not on brand to be Seer and not be able to see. And I remember thinking like, oh, well, if this is the time where, God, I really hope that this is not going to be permanent, but what if it is? And I had to consider that. And I remembered the example of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, where, he was receiving treatment and, had to seriously consider that it might have been his deathbed. And how he was saying to Allah, Allah, I accept your will. Thank you, Allah. And he was able to thank Allah even in the intense pain that he went through. I feel emotional just thinking about it. But anyway, thanks to his example, I was able to call up those feelings as well and remember that I can't just, I had to ask myself, like, would I be cursing God if I'm not able to see? And then how would I travel, right? Because travel is super important to me. Like it's in my veins. It's like I breathe it. It's part of what I understand to be a portion of what I understand Allah has created me for. It's always been that way. It's one of the few things that I feel pretty certain about in regards to understanding, the trajectory, big story that Allah may have for me. So anyway, I was like, okay, cool. Well, Allah, if this is, if that's your will, then I accept your will, and I resolved that I would just figure out how to travel and experience the sights of the world another way. I would just have to learn to taste the smells, the touches, the sounds of anywhere else that I went to. And that would just be how I was traveling, because there ain't no way I was going to stop traveling, because that's not what this was. That was not what this is. But thank Allah, He blessed me to be able to recover so that I can see. So now today in New York, the weather is it's pretty cloudy, pretty gray, but I thank Allah that I can see these things too. And so it's like, even the smallest thing, like just physically being able to bear witness with my own eyes to the people that I love, oh, it's so wonderful. And so now when I travel the world, when I have the opportunity to travel, that is, or even when I travel in like different worlds. And what I mean is that as part of my work, I had the blessing of working with the United Nations, and I've been doing it now for about 10 years on behalf of a nonprofit that takes Black youth to travel, but travel is just a means to an end. And the end is imbuing our youth with the understanding that we can make a difference in our own lives, accepting the responsibility to make our own communities good and safe and decent places to live. And the organization is 35 years old. I'm not yet 35. I'm just the executive director. I'm not one of the co-founders. But in doing that work, we get to see and explore different worlds. So some of our students, they want to make their change in the world through fashion. Some of our students are in medical school right now. Some of our students are diplomats. Some of our students are literally cancer, like trying to research to cure cancer. Some of them are math teachers. So many believers' children have gone through as well. And so in getting to explore their different worlds and seeing things from their perspectives too, we have gotten to experience the glory of Allah in those ways as well. So I'll leave it at that. In case there was something more specific, I'm not sure if I answered your question. So let me know.
You did, because you showed us that you are just being who you're accepting your own, right? And you're being yourself. And that's where you reside, in that world. So praise be to
Yeah,
God.
and you also showed us how your reliance on Allah sustains you,
Mhm.
right? And we would just when we were off camera, I was just saying, man, you can really tell that she is understanding these attributes, right? Because your ability just to take them and just go into these examples, these live examples that you were giving, this imagination, the pictures that you were painting, so that so that the listening audience can grasp exactly. And this is exactly what you're saying in understanding these attributes, because that's really why we started this show, was getting to this season 3, living by the book, the attributes in action. Because the first couple of years we were just dealing with what are the attributes, introducing the attributes. But now your responses was really getting us to that point that when we give someone these attributes, and as you opened up earlier and you said that, wow, I'm used to hearing Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, and so forth and so forth, but these 3, I really paraphrasing, I really haven't, looked at, studied, and whatnot. And you showed us that through your studies, you have a grasp of at least the definitions and what they look like, right? So, and that's really profound and beautiful. So my question to you is, when you're looking at Haseeb, which means to think, it also means to think, consider, suppose, imagine. And then when you look at Haseeb, or look at Muqeet and Jaleel, what thread, if you saw anything that connected these 3 attributes together, what did you see in these attributes?
Wow, y'all must come from the Ministry of Good Questions. Um, oh, that's such a great question. Like, okay, so the thing that continues to come up for me when we come back to the reality of God as a man, we have 99 attributes, right? Even if you just, you took like a dart and threw it at 2 of them and combined them together into one person, like the Quran constantly calls Allah the Lord of mighty grace. And I've been pondering that, 'cause, like, why does it say mighty grace and not like graceful might? Or like, in striving to just get to know and understand and come closer to Allah, I really want to like come closer to him. And so I've been trying to understand like, well, what kind of a mind would produce or say things in a certain way that he does, right? So, you could just take any combination, put them together, and say if these two things are true about a person, he would be a really amazing, amazing, amazing person. But he's got 99 of them. Cool, amazing. So when you look at like imagine, and not, it's cool because we don't have to imagine because he's real, but we have to consider. I think that's a better word. Considering a person who is like so generous to be a maintainer, a guardian, someone who has so much power, who also takes into account like the little details. Like, I mean, I love, and I can see like Sister Sadia, you too. Whenever I've seen you around, one thing about you, you're gonna come through stepping in a fly garment and some fly shoes. I've been seeing you around for years. And I love like as a visual person, I love like the little details. And when you can notice just like, it's the little details in a garment or like a hem. It's like, oh, they decided to do the seam like that. Like you decided to combine like those earrings with that necklace, and then I like how you did that. So then now the colors play off. But Allah is that way too. When they say the devil's in the details, because we're in the white man's world. But God is in the details too. And he also very much appreciates the little, like the minute things. Like he's Al-Latif, the subtle, as well as Al-Zahir, like the manifest and obvious and evident. Like he's got that going for him too. And I'm like, so that helped me to appreciate him even more. And then in thinking about Al-Jalil too, basically, I'm still searching for, I'd like to understand more about how they all kind of tie together. I think that so far I've found his literal majesty and amazingness to be a bit incomparable for me. But when I remember the fact that he is indeed like a man, a person as well, and thinking about, imagine a person who embodies these characteristics, like it's 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 an interesting, it's an amazing combination. And then the question of, okay, so then how do we then also embody these things? It feels kind of far away and lofty, but the fact that he says that it's possible and he does not lie means that it's possible. So I see it as kind of a it's not a nut to crack, but yet another journey to embark upon. So I say all that to say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm eager to find out. And I pray that he helps us in understanding him more, such that the threads that tie this all together become more evident to us over time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Maybe that's what season 4 need to be about, right?
The evidence of these attributes.
Oh, I'm not quite sure.
But we'll never exhaust knowledge, right?
Season 4.
Right.
Yeah,
And
right
if
now.
all the trees and all the seas were in, you could never exhaust Allah's wisdom.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely beautiful, because it's ever unfolding, right? It's ever unfolding itself and maturing itself. But I really think it's important because, it's like being in a race, a relay race. And, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said to us that the Quran takes us up to the door of the hereafter, through the judgment to the door of the hereafter, but it does not permit us in. Right? So we can have to consider really where we are. So I think the questions that we're pondering and looking at and considering are so valuable today, because that's really where we must be, especially when Honorable Elijah Muhammad says to us that the hereafter for my followers is now, right? Is now, right? So when you combine the judgment, up to the door of the judgment, the hereafter for my followers is now, up to the door of the hereafter, excuse me, but the hereafter for my followers is now, then what type of mind should I have, right? And that's why I think what we're talking about is very important, right? Because it leads us to really discovering where I need to be in this space and time, in being present. When I say I'm present, what do I mean by being present? Yeah.
And that's about the cultivation.
Yeah.
To cultivate. It's a we continue digging and farming and planting and sowing and harvesting. So we'll continue on that journey. Well, sis, thank you so much. Excellent presentation. excellent representation.
Alhamdulillah.
You know, so you're part of the team now. You
Oh,
know that, right?
absolutely. 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 Yeah.
Whatever else that we can do to help you in your journey, please call on us as well, and we can.
Noted. Thank you very much. And thank y'all for creating these, curating these conversations, like, and going back and getting to see like past discussions y'all had. I'm having so much fun. This is really, I think it's like so needed because in studying Allah and understanding him more, studying our creator, it helps us understand ourselves, Like Edward Scissorhands had to understand, like, well, why was I created? Like what was the point? He had to get to know like his create, but like we're creations too, is my point. Bro. I mean, so like we have to, in understanding him, it helps us to understand ourselves more. And so thank you for this mirror and this window into ways of thinking that y'all are offering with this, platform. Super excited to tune into the next speakers. But thank you again. It's an honor to be here with you.
I mean,
Our pleasure.
I
Praise
mean,
be
I
to-
mean,
Don't
praise
leave
be
just
to
yet,
Allah.
okay? We're gonna do our announcements and then we'll come back to you, sister, at the very end, okay? All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Praise be to Allah. Oh, excellent.
Excellent.
I had fun.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
funny to
yeah.
me.
She. I try to tell you, she
No,
definitely.
like, who is this? May I ask who this is? And then a whole nother personality came out.
Yeah, nah,
Praise
she's
be to
awesome.
Allah.
Very
All right.
beautiful spirit.
Very much so. All right. So praise be to Allah for another wonderful episode. Join us tomorrow. You just tag teaming over there,
Come
brother.
on, man.
Come on now. Sister Joy for Joy X for episode 18. Part of the team.
Yes.
Praise be to Allah. So join us tomorrow so we can hear another mighty vanguard who just loves these teachings and doesn't mind sharing it. That's right, Sister Jaydah. All right. And so if Sister Jaydah, this is for you
Ja,
too.
God.
Daya. Sister Ja.
Ja.
Jaydah
Ja.
in my mind. Sister Jadea.
Jaydah seer.
That's right.
Come on now.
Can nev-
Muhammad.
Can never forget that. So join us. If you want to watch previous replays, today's replay, go to Facebook at Mos 45, or you can log on to YouTube at 99 The One, the most beautiful names. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at 99TMBN. And you can also listen to us. Not only are we on social media, but we live streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and Podbean. Podbean, which is the platform that our Ummah Reflects is on as well. And we are a nonprofit 501(c) organization, Sister Jadea. And so we ask those, and you know what? I haven't done this yet, but we thank everybody who have been donating.
Yes.
And so know that your donations have been going to good places. One, for example, is there's a prison unit for women in Gatesville, Texas, and they'll have their first Eid celebration dinner when we break for Eid. So praise be to Allah for your donation. If you want to donate to us, you can open up your phone, your camera, place your camera on the QR code, and a link will come up. You press that link, and the page will come up so that you may make the donation, or you can do it manually with Cash App, $99 The One, or Zelle with the email address 99tmbn@gmail.com, and know that it is a tax write-off too. All right.
You know that I can do your taxes.
Right. My brother, he does taxes. He does taxes well.
For real though.
So Ramadan Journal and Planner, our sister Fatima Muhammad, and y'all got to watch hers as well. She was excellent. She has a 30-day companion, including daily Quranic Jews, weekly reflections, prayer tracker, and more. And you can visit at mysistershouse.org to purchase. And she's also on Amazon. All right. And then, praise be to Allah. I got mine right here. We're going to have Sister Fatima soon. Get your Ramadan 2024 Quranic Reading Journal and Historical Digest at shop.researchminister.com. This has been compiled for the past 4 to 5 years by our dear beloved brother student minister Demetric Muhammad. All right. So praise be to Allah. So as we close, we would like to close with the words of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who's reported to have said, cultivate within yourselves the attributes of Allah. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan stated, if you run down all of the attributes, the characteristics of God, these are the attributes of human beings who are crafted by the Creator. Praise be to Allah.
And you come off mute, Sister Jaydah. Now they accuse us with what they call us being they were saying when they're corny. They say-
I don't mind corny.
Yeah, I don't mind being corny, right?
I tell my children a lot of times, corny makes coins.
Come on now, you teaching.
That was corny.
Yeah, that was corny. That was corny.
I wasn't saying
But it's true because people love just you having fun with it.
Yeah, mashallah.
So, all right. So without further ado, assalamu alaikum and
Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem.
Bismillah. He is the benevolent, the giving and merciful. He's so indescribable. His love is irreversible. Word undeniable, lyrically untriable, ultimately viable, eternally supplyable. Maybe inconceivable, but beautifully believable. The true reality, there's no similarity. Gave us more than charity, peace and prosperity. Why did we never care to see it? We could keep its clarity. The Almighty, the Father metaphorically, but in the history they tried to make his word a mystery. Gave him mortality, anthropomorphic fallacy. Say he's got a seed, they can never bring the proof to me. And honestly, the greatest, the best, beyond time and space, beyond matter and flesh. Yes, he's uncomparable, yet his parables infinitely listed pictures couldn't give a good description. The pictures missing, but he created all the living in every dimension, and he inspired what I'm giving, the giver of wisdom, devoid of any needs. Anything that he wants, all he has to say is be, cause he's the untouchable, infinitely trustable, his plan unstoppable, power untoppable, the reliable, undeniable, greater than the physical, master of the mystical, the master of the worlds, the fashioner of seas.